What's up, everybody? In this video, I would like to take some time to talk about meditation and essentially what is meditation, how do we do it, why do we do it, and what are the things you can expect to occur when you implement meditation as a practice into your life. Now, if you're familiar with my videos, usually the video itself is a sort of meditative trance for me, and I can get going into just these deep, long, drawn-out spiels of barely comprehensible energies going on in my consciousness that I'm trying to distill into words to deliver these deep inner experiences and perspectives. And those videos can sometimes tend to be upwards of 2 hours long, but in this video I want to keep it kind of short and concise and a little bit more practical as to meditation and what that is as a practice. So to do that, because I don't usually script things or write things, and I just kind of go, to do that, to keep it tied in, I have a bunch of notes written here, and I don't even know if these notes are linear. I mean, it kind of seems progressive in description of meditation to me, but you will all make of it what you do. So if it just kind of seems all over the place, don't mind me. That's just the style of how I share things and make videos. But yeah, we're going to be talking about meditation, what that is, how to do it, why to do it, and the kind of things that will happen when you integrate meditation as a practice into your life. So for the first note I have here, it's kind of answering the question in simple terms, what is meditation? So, like I said, very simply put, because I could go deep into what is happening when we meditate, what a meditative space or trance is, what is entailed in being here now and resting in the moment and the qualities of that. But let's just think of this as, another self-help video, another therapy video, another, it's like an exercise. It's like working on yourself, truly just working on yourself and caring about yourself. So when we talk about meditation in those terms, what comes to mind is it's about calming down. It's about quieting the mind, resting in this moment, and not being as identified with the river of thoughts and emotions that we are all too familiar with, that take us on all these extravagant trips and experiences and perspectives and all that. Meditation, simply put, is a way of bringing us into the immediacy of what we are. Another simple way of putting it is meditation is the practice of actively being what we are. There's not anything that's actually going on in meditation aside from turning the awareness in on, or turning even the attention in on the feeling of being. The feeling of being here, being alive, being human, being somebody. Oh God, what does it mean to be somebody, Being I amness. Meditation is focusing on the I amness, the isness, the spirit of what it is to be alive. And you can probably see how easy it is for me to just start preaching about some crazy shit. Just bear with me here. Becoming present, it takes many forms. It does. It takes many forms, and that's why I keep stressing why I want to make this a simple video, because the meditative experience is everything but sitting and focusing on your breath. Sitting and focusing on your breath, or repeating a mantra, or the methods of meditation is literally the doorway. That's just it. It's just a doorway into the meditative space. The focusing on your breath becomes the meditation. The repeating the mantra becomes the meditation. And at first you just sit there, I'm focusing on my breath, rising, falling, rising, falling, or repeating a mantra, Ram, 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 or even counting. You know, that's the thing with the mind, is it's very mechanical. And once you find a method of meditation that's comfortable to you and works with you to allow you to pierce through the sort of boundaries of the perspectives of the mind, that very quickly and very fluidly becomes your method of meditation. And the different methods of meditation we'll talk about as I continue on with the video. But yeah, essentially it's finding a way to go beyond the mind, because the mind is the root of our ego, of our separate self. And this is its whole other thing to talk about, the ego and the mind and different desires and cravings. And the mind is the home of all our problems. It's the home of all our misfortune, of all our greed, of all our excitement, of all our accomplishments, of all our status, of all our letdowns, of all our... The mind is the obstacle in meditation. The mind is the obstacle, not only in meditation, but in life. In really being in a space of wisdom and peace and love and compassion, the mind is the thing that gets in the way of that. The mind is the... You can think of... Because our spirit, our very being, has certain qualities to it. And I could go off on it, but I want to keep it simple and describe it how... Think of our very being as a body of water, where the mind comes in as the ripples, the rippling and the whitewashing of the water, you know, when it gets all churned up and crazy and lots of turmoil, and you can't see through and through yourself. You can't see through to the nature of what you are. And also notice how the rippling of the water is not separate from the water. The rippling of the water takes place in the water. The obstacles of the mind take place in the being, the essence of the being that we are. And once the rippling of the mind is sort of ironed out and smoothed out, even temporarily, which it will usually be, unless you meditate once and just blast through into enlightenment, you know, into samadhi, even if it's temporary, the calming down, the smoothing of the mind will allow you to witness, you could say, your potential, your beauty, your depth, the infinite nature of yourself, the infinite love and wisdom and miraculousness and mystery, all these beautiful, wondrous words of what it means to be alive right now. As I make this video and as you watch this video, it's here. This is it. This is it. But the thing that makes it seem like you're someone watching a video and I'm someone making a video and the lights are on and it's just another day, that's the mind. That's the mind where the ego operates and where all the seductive persuasions of the mind reside. So as you can see, I'm already going off on these tangents, but I love it because that's the way I really share my perspective on these things. But yes, meditating, put simply, is to calm down, to see through the mind, to find a way to move beyond the mind, which isn't into some future inexistent place, but it's actually right here, but the mind obscures it. To use another metaphor, it's like the sun is always shining during the day. Even if it's on the other side of the world, you're just gonna have to wait, you know what I mean? But imagining it's daytime, and the clouds are what obscure the sunlight from coming through. The clouds are the mind, and the sun and the shiningness of the sun is the nature of yourself. It's always there. It's just right behind this thing that we just so happen to live in perpetually and habitually and painfully, because the mind imposes a lot of limitations on our potential and on what we can be and how, that's really it. The potential of what we have in being alive and being human. So meditation is to, what is it? It's to calm down. It's to calm down. And I don't know if I talked about, because this is another note I have here, stereotypes, where if you don't regularly meditate, you may, or you don't know much about meditation, and you see someone sitting and meditating, you may immediately wonder, I wonder what they're doing. I wonder what they're thinking. I've had experiences many times where I'm at my mom's and I'm kind of just sitting like this, resting. We're all hanging out. And my mom looks at me and she says, "Where are you right now?" Because she's imagining that since I'm sitting here on just silent with my eyes closed, that I'm on some incredible astral plane where I see through all these dimensions, and I'm just like, I'm right here, If you're meditating and someone asks you, "What are you thinking?" and you immediately, if you're actually meditating, you say, "I'm not." Or if somebody asks you, "What are you doing?" and you're actually meditating, you say, "I'm breathing. I'm breathing in right now." You know what I mean? I'm repeating the word Ram. Like those things kind of sound funny. And there are stereotypes in meditating and seeing someone meditate. And what's going on inside that being that's meditating when we aren't familiar with it? What's going on with that person? Where are they? As my mom says, where are you right now? What are they thinking? What are they doing? Why are they doing that? And that actually happens to be my next point here, is why should we meditate? But yeah, I just want to share real quick, like there was another time where I work, I used to sit outside during the summer when it was warm, and I work at a dispensary, so essentially I'm just kind of waiting for customers to come where I can serve them. But in the downtime, when there were no customers, I'd sit outside, and while I'm sitting outside, I would just sit and meditate, just sit and be. It even feels kind of weird for me to call it I'm meditating, because it's more so just being here with what I am right now. And there were a few times that my boss pulled in and would see me and then go about what he's doing. And long story short, I essentially got told by my coworker, "Hey, our boss told me to tell you no more meditating out front." And that, like, when that happened, that's just like, that's such a me problem. That's such a me predicament, is no more meditating out front, you know what I mean? Like, and I actually ended up asking my boss, "Hey, why is it you don't want me?" Because I'm just kind of sitting out there, like, what is it you don't want? And he told me, when he saw me sitting there with my leg pulled up, sitting in half lotus with my eyes closed, and I had my shoes kind of off, he told me, he's like, "That's just not the image we're trying to put out." So that actually, to talk about stereotypes, seeing someone meditating, seeing someone resting in this moment makes some people uncomfortable, I mean, think about it. Like, if you're not about that stuff and you see someone that's being all spiritual and trippy, which it, at the end of the day, really isn't. Like, that's just a kind of stereotype of how you see it because you aren't familiar with what's actually going on. But in that case, that's what was going on. Was it, he said, that's not the image we're trying to put out here. So I was like, all right. I get it. We're big hardy boys that smoke and sell weed, and we don't need no fluid meditators sitting out front. That's not the image. Okay, I understand, which I did. But yeah, I just wanted to share that story real quick to go off of the stereotypes of when you see someone meditating if you don't regularly meditate, and just the kind of things we project onto them when we see that kind of stuff. So my note here, why should we meditate? Once again, and kind of like there is with everything, there's an advanced answer where it's like really in depth and really trippy and far out, and there's also a very simple, straightforward answer. And the advanced answer, I guess, put simply, is that meditation, you look into the teachings of Hinduism and reading from the Bhagavad Gita, or you look into the teachings of Buddhism and I don't know the lists off the top of my head. See, that's the thing, is Buddha was a list maker, and he has all these lists, and the advanced thing is that meditation is essentially the backbone of spiritual progression. Where if you haven't cultivated a meditative space inside yourself, if you haven't cultivated a space of meditative awareness inside yourself, it's either going to be a very long time or not at all that you are going to advance deeper into available wisdoms, available realizations. Because I said it earlier that there are qualities of when you regularly meditate, when you start to meditate and, like I said a moment ago, cultivate a meditative mind, a meditative space inside yourself, things start to open up to you. Things start to look differently. And when you don't meditate, or you did it once and then said, no, that's not for me, and see, this is the thing with meditation, is maybe you're finding that space through all sorts of different activities. And that's what can lead me into talking about different methods of meditation, because it's not just sitting and following your breath. Meditation goes very much so beyond that. But really the advanced idea of why should we meditate is because if you don't, you're not going to be there for the progression of your own spiritual realization, of your own wisdom, You're going to continue to be caught up in the mechanical nature of the mind, where we are reacting and overreacting and fantasizing and desiring and getting angry and getting jealous and being greedy and being lustful and trying to find our way out of that, but through doing those things. That's the thing with the mind. When you haven't opened this space inside yourself, is that you try to find happiness through the next thing, even though that next thing you already know has fucked you over in the past. Whether it's a relationship, or going to get a new job, or moving, or I'm gonna try that out. We sort of in the mind, we get caught up in our desires and our ambitions and dreams and our sadness and our pain, and we sort of hold up this image of hope, that I hope that doing this next thing, moving to this place, getting this new job, trying out this new hobby, ending this relationship and starting this relationship, I hope that is what makes me feel fulfilled. I hope that is what does it for me, what makes me happy and gets rid of all the pain. But the thing is, the reason you're going from one thing to the next is because it's not fulfilling. The place you're coming from when you're doing all this shit, where if you were fulfilled, it wouldn't matter whether or not where you worked or where you lived or who you're with or what you do. It doesn't matter, because the Contentment is inside of you. And that really is the kicker right there, is that why should we meditate? In the advanced idea is because that is the literal space that allows you to even begin to understand that you are where it all starts. You are where it becomes clear and it becomes peaceful and calm and it becomes enough. You are enough. This is enough. And if you don't meditate and if you don't have that space inside yourself and that wisdom, like I've been saying, it's going to be, I'm going to go and do that and you know, all about the monkey mind. It's going to be looking outside for its peace, for its love. It thinks that it's, you know, loneliness and sadness and insecurity and status, wanting, I'm only good enough if I have a group of people telling me I'm good enough. I'm only lovable if I have someone telling me I love you so much. I'm only beautiful and successful if I have people telling me that. You know, I'm only worth something if I have this type of car and this type of job and this amount of income from my job. Those are the things that are, that's the mind trying to figure itself out, which is aside from meditation. It's aside from meditation to try and figure everything out through the mind itself and through the rational thinking and the flows of our conceptual thinking and the way we feel. And see, I'm going off again. And yeah, the simple advanced answer is that you don't really have a place to stand if you don't meditate. But the simplistic answer is kind of like what I said in the very beginning. It's to calm down, to open the mind up to greater possibilities, to greater potential, to center the mind in right where it is, where it's not being so dramatic and romanticizing and off in the far reaches of fantasies and memories and responsibility of what it has to do, you know what I mean? It's to center the mind in just what is right now, to bring clarity to the mind, to bring this openness and this clarity in not only your predicament and how you feel, but if you're interacting with somebody else or you're in a relation of some sort with someone else, being able to not only see where you're at and where you're coming from, but to see why they feel the way they do and why they are reacting or acting the way that they perhaps are. So that's the simple answer, is why should we meditate? Because we're really caught up in the mind. We're really, we're busy. We're not here. Why do you think all these teachers, why do you think Ram Dass went around telling everybody to be here now? Why do you think all these teachers are talking about being in the moment? Be here in the moment. Just be here now. Focus on the feeling of being right now. Focus on the feeling of I am. I am is not a thing that's going on in the perceived future or something that was way back when. I am is right now. Why are they telling us to focus on that? Because, kind of like I've been stating, there are qualities of the spirit, of meditation, that arise when we find ourselves in this space of meditation. And a lot of stuff, I've kind of heard it put this way, a lot of stuff doesn't exist anymore when we rest in this moment. You may notice it where, you know, if you already meditate or have methods to how you meditate, you may notice that when you have what you would call a good meditation, It's where you went from maybe a state of neutrality, emotional neutrality, maybe a little bit of boredom, of I don't know what to do, I don't feel like doing anything, or maybe coming from the depths of tightness and anger and resentment or sadness, sorrow and pain, which brought you to meditate. You may notice how when you get deep into a meditation, of a meditative experience, in the midst of it, in the happening of it, there are no problems. There's no problem solving going on either. That's another thing, is the thing that's trying to, I'm going to sit and meditate so that I can work through this information and get through these feelings and, whatever. That stuff is absent. The problem solver, the problems themselves, the depths, all the conceptual logistics of our problems and our dreams and what we're trying to do and who we think we are, time itself, all kind of just becomes an idea. It's just, and it's not even in awareness at that point. All that there is this moment, which is everything, which is just eternity, peace, presence. There is nobody. And with that nobodiness, a lot of stuff isn't there anymore. There's not somebody that was born and dies. There's not somebody that has responsibilities and something to do. There's not somebody that's all fucked up and has to heal themselves. There's not somebody that's working on themselves. There's not that thing that you wish you had, and you used to have it and now you don't. That's gone. All that's here is right now. All that's here is this moment. And this moment is what we are. See, those are the things that, like, meditation, although I'm trying to come at this video in a simplistic, practical manner, it's kind of hard for me to avoid talking about the profound things that come about when we meditate, because that's how it is for me. Is meditation is, on the one hand, completely simple and subtle and easy and right here, and there's nothing crazy about it. And on the other hand, meditation is a literal gateway to deeper truths and deeper perspectives of what it means to be alive, and what is this right now? What is this? And you can kind of think of that, of the contemplative or the philosophical mind that begins to try to work with the notions that are coming about through the meditation of, holy shit, where just was I? Oh my God, it was working, talking in sense of coming out of a space where you were just nowhere, and everything just was, and it was right here. And a lot of the time, like, what we call, like, flow states or in the zone, where, like I remember working in kitchens, and it would get busy as all hell, and I would get in the flow. I would get in this space where I'm just kind of swinging it. I'm just doing stuff. I'm cooking, and I'm pulling tickets, and I'm moving and calling stuff out and putting stuff down and plating stuff and giving it to the people, and, oh, I need that, go and grab that while that's cooking, and everything is just equal, and it's like nothing's even happening. I'm just flowing, and in that, the mind is gone, and there's a beautiful grace and a peace that is in that flow state. Or, like, a lot of people that do sports or exercise get into these flow states. And earlier, when I was talking about it takes many forms, meditation takes many forms, this is what I'm talking about, of how it doesn't just look like somebody sitting up straight breathing. It looks like somebody, like I was just saying, cooking in a kitchen, or riding a bike, or surfing, or all sorts of stuff, all sorts of painting, or making arts and crafts, or walking on a walk. The way in which you're listening to the music you're listening to, driving, you know, meditation isn't a thing in itself. Meditation is a space within us that we cultivate through doing this thing we call meditation. Kind of like what I was talking about earlier, that it's already there. It's already there. It's just a matter of mechanically learning how to tune into that space so that it's not here and there, and in between we're living our lives in a abusive, detrimental, discompassionate way where we're making things hard on others and we're making things hard on ourselves, usually based out of our own selfishness, you know. And that is the mind and the ego and all that kind of stuff is its whole other conversation. And I'm trying to keep it on the point of meditation in this video of what is that, why should we do it, and what happens when we do, you know. So the simplistic answer: to calm down, to open and center the mind, to cultivate patience, presence, clarity, and compassion. Those things might just sound like very fluffy words, but really, you know, this is something I've thought about in myself personally. This is entirely personal, but seeing this culture and how certain people are acting, how certain motivational speakers are telling people what they should do and how they should be. When I hear words like, you know, alpha male and dominance and courage and power and authority and knowledge and strength and those kind of things, I feel slightly put off. I feel slightly like, that's not what I want. That's not what I want. You know, and you got people all around that talk that shit right up, that that's what it's about. That's what it means to be a male. That's what it means to be the masculine, powerful, all that shit. When I hear those kind of buzzwords, I get a feeling of, no, that's not the way to me. But on the other hand, when I hear words like peace, patience, presence, compassion, empathy, joy, depth, tenderness, loving, kindness, those things I aspire to. I aspire to that. That pulls me right in. That's the stuff that it's like, that's what I want to embody. That's what I want to be, is present and loving and kind and calm and patient and understanding. I don't want to be big and strong and dominant and powerful and authoritative, if that's even a word. And that just seems like a whole nother thing. And yeah, that's like I said, that's kind of just a personal thing. But really, and of course, with the qualities of meditation coming from me, those are the things that really pull me towards and attract me to meditation and ultimately spiritual awareness, is these qualities that we begin to develop in ourselves, which to me translates into true strength and courage and wisdom, is to be loving and to be kind and right here and not judgmental and not imposing and projecting all these things on everybody and ourselves, and to be to be more open and more receptive and yielding and forgiving and just allowing this world, you know? Those are the things that shine to me. And these are the kind of things that we begin to develop when we sit and integrate meditation as a practice into our lives. Is, you know, if you're somebody that meditates and you've developed and are working to develop this space inside yourself, you will be the first one to notice the fruits of your actions in doing that when shit hits the fan. When someone dies, when someone leaves you, when someone gets sick or you get hurt, or you get fired, or bad shit, just what we would call bad shit, bad stuff happening. You will be the first one to realize, wow, this is what I was taught to be ready for. This is what I was taught to handle, you know? When a pet dies or a loved one dies, and rather than being completely absorbed into the grief and the loss and why me, and this is so hard, this is so bad, the world is so, why do things have to be like this? You recognize the nature of nature, the flow of life. And of course you grieve, and of course you hurt, but you don't take that and run with it. You allow your grief to be. But not only do you allow the grief to be, you honor the life of that thing, and you honor the depth you have to feel for that thing, whether it's a person or a pet. You don't get as lost into the shit. You don't get as lost into the drama, you know? Like I said, when you are someone that meditates and has cultivated a meditative space, you will be the first one to realize, okay, these people around me are kind of in it, like drowning in it. And I feel like I see it. And I'm aware enough to say, yes, this hurts, but that's not me. Yes, this is sad, but that's not me. Yes, this is intense, but we don't have to overreact. And I've noticed this in different times where, like, if you have a regular spiritual practice, bad, detrimental shit isn't always going on. So you're kind of living in, and on the flip side of that, incredible, profound spiritual realizations aren't always occurring either. So you kind of find yourself in this middle ground where you're just kind of chilling and you're working on developing these practices and these spaces of awareness in yourself. And at times you might start to wonder, what's the point of this? Wouldn't I rather be out being extravagant and, you know, I'm sitting here in silence when I could be listening to music or out exploring or doing all this stuff, you know? And you may wonder to yourself, why? What's the point? Life isn't that crazy. But then something crazy happens, something hard happens, or something that would used to enrage you happens, and you're there for it, and it's not as intense, and you realize, oh, okay, I see. All that meditating I've been doing was for these kind of experiences, so that I don't get completely engulfed and lost in the drama of it, but rather am able to allow it to move through my being and not get caught, and not, because when we get engulfed in it, we react, and in that reacting is we point it at other people, we treat in other things, and we project it onto the world, where if I'm having a bad day and I'm sad, I make it your problem. You know what I'm saying? And this space allows us to bear these kind of things with with a greater level of awareness and wisdom and not get as lost into it. And even the subtle, petty stuff where you get in a kind of tense situation, and rather than reacting with your judgment or your I'm right and you're wrong, or your anger, or your feeling of they just offended me, and any of that, you kind of see it, and it kind of moves through you, and you're like, oh, this isn't a fucking big deal. Like, this isn't, you know what I mean? And it allows you to move forward with love, and with patience, and with presence, and not trying to be the one that's gonna let them know and let the world know. I hope this is making sense. I'm kind of just pouring the mind. And what's interesting is it's coming from nowhere. I'm not, it's just coming out of nowhere. So yeah, that was talking about why should we meditate. Hold on, I'm gonna make sure my phone's still recording. Yep, we're still rocking and rolling. Perfect. Hopefully the focus is all right. But yeah, why should we meditate? Advanced answer, you have to, or you're not going to develop deeper in spiritual wisdom and awareness. Simple answer, more practical answer, it makes you calmer. It makes you able to allow things more. It makes you more conscious. It makes you more loving and kind and humorous and present, you know? Very simple things that we all kind of yearn for, you know? So my next note I have here is methods of meditation. And kind of like what I was talking about earlier with the meditation, it takes many forms. That most certainly should be noted here when talking about the methods of meditation. Because the methods I have listed here are very cliche or typical forms of meditating. Because essentially the meditation is a way of moving deeper or beyond the mind into a deeper space of ourselves. And to do that, there's many ways to do that. We may even find ourselves accidentally doing it, not even knowing why we got into that space or how, therefore not attributing that space with the qualities, the very nature of meditative space itself, you know? I hope that made sense. But like, if you don't know how or why you felt, if you get into a space of meditation and didn't mean to, therefore not knowing how you got into it, you won't be able to attribute that space of meditation with, wow, that's a space of meditation within myself, and this is how I got here. So it's kind of like just a good moment, a hope. Wow, that was a really cool experience. I was out of my mind. I was so in the zone, you know. I wish I had that more, but I don't know how to do that. Meditation is about learning how to do that. Learning how to get in the zone, get into this moment, and invoke that space, you know. I keep calling it a space rather than an experience, because although it is an experience, it's more so a present, everly present quality of existence, where if you're tuned into it, you're tuned into that space. It's not like an experience you have, even though in the rational, causal way of describing things, sequential way of describing things, if you have a deep meditative experience, you'll look back and say, wow, that was a crazy experience. Not recognizing that it's right here, right now, you know? So for methods of meditation, I have a few different things listed here. Vaping is not one of the methods, by the way. I mean, aren't we all just kind of hanging out? So the first things I have kind of go hand in hand. But what I have written is japa meditation and mantra meditation. Japa meditation has directly to do with these right here. Beads or necklaces, or there's different tools of japa. There's this thing that you can like swing around, and it swings this little ball on a string around, and what you do is you just kind of keep the centrifugal force of that going. You'll see a lot of tantric Buddhists and monks doing that method. Or this little bell where you turn it and it goes but yeah, japa meditation is simply the act of how do I put this? You're using each bead as a reminder. You're using each bead, and the reason japa kind of goes with mantra is usually when you're doing japa meditation with beads, you're repeating a mantra. You're going Ram, 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 or Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. And there's a whole method that goes with it where there's 108 beads, and before you pass to in a full circle, you turn the thing around and go back the other way. But essentially, japa meditation is using each bead as a cursor for the mantra of your choice, whatever that may be. And this is a very mechanical way of meditating, because that's just what it takes to go beyond the mind. Is a very simple, straightforward, absolutely easy thing to do that allows us to transcend our mind. Something as simple as repeating a phrase, repeating a word, Ram, 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 Ram. So that is one form of meditation, and that's actually a form of meditation that's not, I wouldn't say, my main method of meditating, but it's something, it's why I wear these beads. And I like that a lot, because rather than wearing these beads as a sort of, hey, look at me, I'm spiritual, I got these beads, I got these necklaces, you can count on me being a spiritual guy. Rather than it being that, it's more so when it comes to my mind, I can take one and begin to work with the method, the japa method of meditation. And it brings you right into that space. Maybe it takes 30 seconds, maybe it takes 5 minutes, maybe it takes 45 minutes. But if you stick with these methods, they bring you in. They bring you in, and the meditative space that I've been talking about this whole video is the product of the method working, you know? So japa meditation, using the beads. Mantra meditation more specifically, you don't have to be using a physical product of like beads or whatever. Mantra meditation is repeating a word or repeating a phrase, and you're probably more familiar with that method of meditation. Where some of you may call it affirmations, but you repeat this word, you repeat a word, you repeat a mantra, you repeat this phrase. And there are different levels to mantra meditation, where typically the easiest and most workable way of doing mantra meditation is to say it out loud. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. And with that, it's also very powerful, because it's auditory. You feel the vibration of it, especially if you're doing something like just Om meditation, where you're sitting and going, Om. you can tune right into the very thing that you're doing, which is the production of this sound, of this mantra, understanding that this is the method that you're using, and forget where it's going to bring me and forget what's going to happen. All I'm worried about right now is saying Om. I'm going to just say Om. That's it. Nothing else. Doing it at that gross of a level is actually very powerful. But I think I have read before that there are the different levels of mantra meditation, where at first you're saying it aloud, but then the mantra begins to work its way deeper and deeper into your consciousness, into your awareness, where you won't, like, say you're at work or you're doing something, you won't have to be saying it out loud, because at this point it's in your mouth. It's sublingual. It's the mouth is still doing the mantra, but it's not coming out as a sound. You're just doing it subvocally, I believe it's called. And then an even deeper level of performing mantra meditation is where it's in the mind. You can be talking to someone. I could be talking right now, and in the mind, behind what I'm talking about is Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, and it's in the mind, in the realm of thinking, where the thoughts are going on behind while we're talking about something. The mantra deepens into the mind itself and is just cycling in there, And I remember when I first got into mantra meditation, I repeated Ram all day long, and the next day I couldn't stop. I woke up and was starting to go through my day, and already Ram, 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 Ram. It's just going, and it's like this machine working inside me that's just pouring out this phrase. And I started to get kind of frightened, like, oh Jesus, like, what if I get stuck saying Ram all the time, Which is such a funny thought looking back on it. But yes, the mantra meditation can be performed in different ways. Another form of meditation, which is probably the most popularized, most familiar to you all method of meditation, focusing on the breath. Whether you fixate your awareness on the tip of the nose, where you feel the air coming in, and then you feel the air going out. Or fixating, I don't know if you can see it, but the abdomen. When you breathe in, the abdomen, there's a muscle that rises, and when you breathe out, that muscle falls or retracts. And this is a very beautiful form of meditation that I'd say, in comparison to mantra meditation or doing japa, breath meditation is usually how I'll work my way into a meditation, is to just very simply begin to oxygenate the body and breathe deeply and do a bit of sort of, not forced, but willful deep breathing to oxygenate the body and give you that feeling of relaxation, of you're not breathing shallow, and it feels very good to oxygenate the body. And then once you've done that, you can, it's like this little flip where you be going from breathing willfully to flipping back to the manual automatic breathing that's been happening for me, both me and you, this whole video. And it can get a little trippy because you can start to think you're doing it, and then you start to interfere with it and try to do it yourself, even though the breath just goes on its own and operates itself. And yeah, the breath meditation is a very, very beautiful and precise way to move into a meditative space. And it feels really good to breathe. It feels, you know, very simple things you'll hear if you're going through a hard time is let's take some deep breaths. Let's just breathe for a minute, you know? And you might have heard it, but I noticed that as I just breathed out, it was a little stuttery. And honestly, that comes from like physical tension and physical like energy that's worked up and like unsteady breathing. And you'll notice as you go deeper into the breath meditation, your breath will begin to steady itself and equalize itself. And at that, where it's doing it itself and it's doing it thoroughly, it's doing it thoroughly to a degree where you don't feel out of breath or you're not manually taking deep breaths or trying to control it, where it's just going, and it allows you to just rest your awareness on it. So that form of meditation you probably are quite familiar with, just focusing on the breath. Now, I wrote here as another form of meditation, openness meditation. This is a bit more nebulous, a bit more complicated to describe, where and I do this one a lot, this breathing meditation and this openness meditation I do quite regularly, where in this openness meditation, I'm not doing anything. My mind will be busy going from one method to the next, where it's repeating, breathing in, breathing out. No, I'm going to do rising, falling instead. No, I'm going to repeat Ram. No, just no words, and I'll just focus on my breath. That's what the mind is doing. And in the openness meditation, I'm just here. I'm not doing anything. My body just so happens to sit down and put itself in a meditative posture and is just, that's it. All this stuff's happening and I'm just here. I am. I just am. I'm not doing anything. And this form of meditation is a bit more complicated, at least. And see, that's the thing, is I don't know why I would be more attracted to it, even though it's more complicated. But I feel like every person is going to have their own method that works the best and works the most thoroughly for them. Where one person might love and get lost in the trance of moving beads through their fingers, while another person gets lost in the feeling of the breath moving in and moving out. And then there's this openness meditation where they, like in my experience, where you're just free. There's nothing to do. There's nowhere to go. Nothing's happening. I just am. This just is. And this form of meditation, there isn't a localized point of focus. That's the complicated part, is the mind will go on all these sorts of trips. But you're not busy saying, oh, I need to be focusing on this. Oh, I got lost again. I'm not meditating right. Dang it. Or taunting yourself with, I'm so bored. This is stupid. Why am I doing this? This isn't going to work. The openness aspect of the meditative practice I'm talking about is where you're really just kind of allowing it all. You're just allowing it all. And you're just being. And this form of meditation is kind of used in like Zen, where you go to a Zen master and you ask, how do I meditate? And they'll tell you, go sit and just sit, do nothing. And that might be way too steep for some people, where they're sitting and they're like, what do you mean do nothing? How do I do nothing? Okay, I'm gonna do nothing. I'm gonna just sit. Okay, I'm just sitting. I'm just sitting. Oh, I'm kind of hungry. This is weird. Why am I doing this? What was it that happened 3 years ago? Oh, that's crazy. Where am I going to be in 4 years? Oh, I better talk to that person. I better and you're immediately a product of the mind again, and you just go off. But if you can maintain the emptiness, or even the openness, the all inclusiveness of this nothingness meditation, it just takes you right in, and you tune right into this, just the timeless, miraculous, infinitely deep nature of this, which is you. And you are this, and you can just, you get very deep into the meditation, and 20 minutes, 30 minutes will go by, and it's just like nothing. You were just here, and you're still just here. And it doesn't matter if I get up or if I sit for another 30 minutes. It's still just here-ness. So there's all sorts of different methods to meditation and how to do it, you know what I mean? And don't take the first one you learn about and say, and ardently focus right on that and say, I have to do it this way. Loosen up a little bit, relax a little bit, look around a little bit to see how other people are meditating, because there are plenty of methods of meditation. Then that kind of brings me back to it takes many forms. Maybe sitting is uncomfortable on your body, and the entire time you're trying to meditate, your body is sort of fighting against you. It's groaning and aching and pain and falling asleep and slouching and hurt back and shallow breathing. So maybe for you, meditation can be done in a more active, moving, fluid way, where you're out on a walk, or even something like Tai Chi, which I haven't really looked into at all, but I've heard described as a very good way of meditating while using the body. Or even like ecstatic dance, like listening to beautiful music and just kind of swinging it, you know, just vibing with the music. And or out on a walk and you're looking and engaged with all the senses and the smells and the feeling of you walking. And you know, there's also just straight up walking meditation, where you become aware of the feeling of walking as you're just walking. All sorts of different forms of meditation. So don't fixate on one until you've found the one that most comfortably you intuitively feel that this is the one that brings you the deepest. This is the one that's the most beneficial, the most effective for you. Another form of meditation you may be familiar with is visualization meditation, which is something that I have done and do every now and then. It's not like I do it every time type thing, but you provide yourself, and usually guided meditations will sort of offer and play out this visualization meditation, where I've done this one with Ram Dass, where you imagine a being, essentially a guru, someone who represents to you everything that enlightenment is, everything that wisdom entails. And you imagine this thread tying you to them, and slowly them coming towards you, and coming into your heart, and resting right inside your heart, and then beginning to grow until their body is your body, And then you begin to expand out beyond the edges of the perceived edges of your body, out into the spaciousness of the room, and then out into the sky, and out into the vastnesses of the cosmos. And it essentially, this visualization meditation just brings you on this trip that takes you out of the conceptual, all caught up mind, and allows you to just open, and to really, with visualization, I also have written feeling, because these guided meditations, these visualizations, can invoke incredible feelings inside of us. Feelings of love, feelings of wisdom, feelings of acceptance, feelings of dying and letting go and being reborn into so much our true potential, and the feelings of trust and safety and faith and acceptance, and all these incredible feelings that when you feel them and when you start to experience them, just turn you to goo and just turn you into, love and openness and acceptance of everything. And those feelings are very seductive. Because you'll come out of a meditation where, I was saying it a while ago, you would consider that a good meditation. And once you go back to meditation, you're going to try to repeat that. You're going to try to attribute that feeling with what it means to meditate, even though in the meditation, feelings of bliss and ecstasy could come, or they couldn't come. Instead of bliss and ecstasy, you might get sorrow and despair and the collective suffering of humanity. And what are you going to do with that feeling? That doesn't feel very good. You allow it, and you work with it, and you carry on and say, wow, thank you, that was a good meditation too. You allow all these feelings and get it. It's very seductive. The bliss and the ecstasies and the rapture and the completely, utterly romanticized love of you and God, you and the Creator. I am the Creator and the Creator is me, and just that classic bhakti devotional merging. You can get very caught up in that. In thinking that that is wisdom, that is happiness, even though that just comes and goes in the same category as feelings of suffering and lack of acceptance and fear and anxiety and boredom and anger and deep sadness, in the same category as all those things as well, which we will encounter when we begin to meditate deeply and regularly. You can't outsmart yourself. You'll start to identify meditation as, bliss and ecstasy and openness and wisdom, but then your meditations will be completely consumed by the counterbalance of those feelings of what you haven't worked on in yourself. You'll be faced with where you're caught. You'll be faced with what you're not really understanding, what you need to work with. Enlightenment isn't just bliss. Being our true potential, adhering and upholding to our true potential, comes with a lot of ups and downs and ups and downs and ups and downs, and good times and hard times and ecstatic times and horrible times. There's a lot that goes with it, with working on ourselves and centering ourselves, and really allowing all of this. That is when compassion and peace and contentment and natural joy begin to sort of arise and become we become that. we become that, we begin to embody that, because we've done all the mind trips, we've done all the mind trips, we've gone through all the ecstasy and insecurity and judgment and acceptance and I love you and why did you do that to me, and we've gone through all that, and we recognize that that's not what this is all about, you know. And who knows what it's all about. I'm kind of just talking, I'm kind of just saying shit, but something begins to develop in us when we allow and we continue to work with ourselves and work on ourselves and recognize how we're kind of being caught up in all these, like, in the same boat as all these other people that we're judging, and all these people that are hurting us. We're hurting people, we're judgmental, we're righteous and judgmental and prideful and mean and hold grudges and get jealous and have so much greed and so much lust. We are that too. And you can't just, you know, people call it spiritual bypassing. You can't just kind of band-aid that stuff up and kind of nestle it away in the corner with these ideas of bliss and ecstasy and wisdom. You kind of have to face it. You kind of have to accept yourself to work with yourself, you know. And that's something you can get caught in. I get caught in it in meditating, in that the reason I sat down to meditate is because I don't accept how I feel, and having to recognize that in the meditation, that wow, I'm using this method of meditation because I don't accept how things are, you know. But it's these states of peace and mental clarity that allow us to reflect and allow us to accept how we're being, and allow us to see our own folly and see how we're trying to be sneaky and sly, and I'm going to sit and meditate because I know that I'm above this and shouldn't be feeling this. That's entirely just not accepting how we feel. And really what we're doing is, I'm going to sit down and try to do this ancient method, ancient beautiful method, because I don't feel good, you know. It's very simple. It's very simple, and in that simplicity, it's a hard pill to swallow, because it reveals our own bullshit to us, the kind of things we don't necessarily want to admit to people. So yes, many methods to meditation. Don't just look at one unless you've recognized that that works really good for you. Be open to many different forms of meditation, and understanding that this meditative space takes a bunch of different forms. So the next thing I have written here is how it affects our minds and our lives, which I've kind of been, you know, touching on throughout this video, the different qualities that we begin to develop within ourselves of peace and joy and calmness and clarity of the mind. And rather than projecting our delusions onto the world, we see our delusions and allow them to sort of disassemble, and we won't say what we usually would say if we were caught up in being overdramatic. We won't look at a situation in the way that we would usually look at it if we're caught up and being overdramatic. We see things much more clearly. And something I've noticed directly is that if I'm angry, if I'm sad, usually if I'm really uptight, frustrated, angry, I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to do anything besides sit and feel this feeling and be with this feeling, because I've noticed that when I'm angry, I'm mean to other people. You might have noticed that yourself, that when you're not feeling good, you're kind of a dickhead to people. You're kind of judgmental and short and snappy, and, you know, telling this story of how they're not worth something and they could be so much better. And, you know, when you're angry, you project that onto the world intensely. At least I do. And I've recognized that when I'm angry, that's time for me to shut up and be with how I feel. And through the process of meditation and accepting and allowing, it allows me to move out of this space of anger, where it's not like the anger disappears and I've overcome it, but more so I've revealed a deeper level of myself that says essentially, and this too. Here I am and I feel angry. You know? And when you get deeper into these states of meditation, it allows you to see why it's okay that you feel the way you do. It's okay that you're upset with them or whatever. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. And then you come out of the meditation, or I'll come out of the meditation, and then I will be in a space where I can talk with this person and not project anger. Because I've sat and I realized that I'm projecting my shit onto them, and in that moment of anger and resentment, I make them seem so little and minuscule and nothing. But then in the meditation, I recognize that the anger that I was feeling is how I'm so little and minuscule and not clear. And I see that and I allow it, and it moves me beyond it, and I come into a space which is much more open and accepting and peaceful, and I can smile and I can say things without tension. And like what I'm getting at here is meditating, having a meditative practice will allow you to work with how you feel rather than feeling away and reacting, where, you know, to go off of what I was saying, I'll come out of these meditations and I'll say, I'm so glad I didn't say something to someone when I was just angry 20 minutes ago. I'm so glad I didn't just project my bullshit onto somebody just because I wasn't feeling good. I'm so glad I just sat and allowed myself to feel, because now I'm in this beautiful, loving, open space where my angry thing isn't even a big deal. And sure, it'll come back up, but what will I do? I will sit and work with it again. I will sit and work with it again. And I just find myself being grateful that I didn't say anything when I was angry or I was really upset, you know? And I sat with it, I felt it, and I came to a deeper level of myself, which allows myself to feel that way. And I didn't hurt anybody in the process of that. I didn't hurt anybody in the meantime. And, you know, if we don't have this way of working with how we feel, we're going to go around making a lot of people feel like shit. We're going to go around feeling like shit, making other people feel like shit, judging ourselves and judging other people out of our own feelings of inferiority, our own feelings of not being enough, of not knowing the way ourselves. You know, you don't ever have to be the one who judges. You don't have to be that angry, resentful, grudge-holding person. You don't have to be the person that was fucked over. You have the ability to be the wisdom, to be the beauty. And when we understand this and see deeper into this, we will be very grateful that we didn't choose to be the victim. You know? We didn't choose to be the dictator saying, you could be better because I'm angry as fuck and don't accept myself. We don't have to be that person. You know? We don't have to live in that. And yeah, what I have written here, mental clarity and attunement to the receiving of deeper wisdoms. That's kind of what I'm talking about, is that it allows us to have a space within ourselves before we overreact, before we judge, before we hurt someone or further hurt ourselves. It allows us to just take a breath and to accept how we feel and accept what they've done and see deeper into that, and maybe come out with a more compassionate, more peaceful way of working with the situation, where instead of judging and calling names and feeding into the drama, we can completely move beyond it and just not like ignoring things, but there's something you recognize that there's a that's the essence of this book right here. The Tao Te Ching is the effortless way, the way of inaction, where that's what you will begin to develop when you meditate. Is you will learn smoother ways to go about things. And this doesn't mean that right when you recognize that you're going to do everything perfectly in the Tao and you're not going to create any more suffering for yourself or others, but it means you're beginning to understand the potential for that, the potential to be able to work with situations in a different way rather than the habitual emotional reactive way that we usually do. We begin to see that there's a way that we can go about this together without hurting each other more, without burying ourselves deeper in karmic bullshit, So mental clarity is very much so an aspect of how meditation will affect our mind over time. And kind of like I was talking about earlier, you will be the first one to witness this when, like I was saying, when something big and dramatic and crazy happens and you realize that you're not as caught in the dramatic shit as everyone else around you, you will immediately recognize that this is from the meditative space. This is from the meditative space. And you'll be so grateful. You'll be so grateful that you didn't have to be the reactive, You didn't have to be so emotionally attached and reactive, and that you have within yourself the potential and the ability to see it in a more open and loving way. And that is very important, at least to me, in meditation, is recognizing that we don't have to do the thing we think we have to do. There's a way out, and there's a loving way to do things. And something I've been thinking to myself over the past few weeks or so is, at the end of your life, do you want to look back and say, man, I was an asshole to that person. I really said some mean things to that person. I really didn't give that person the time of day. I really probably hurt that person. Would you want that, or would you rather look back on your life and say, I'm so glad that all I did was love, and love as best and as deeply as I could. I'm so glad that all I offered was love and compassion. Even if I was the one that got ground under and made out to be whatever, I always find myself being glad that I wasn't overreactive and that I wasn't angry and fuck you, and rather than that, being able to offer love, because as Maharaji says, Ram Dass's guru, love breeds love, hate breeds hate. You don't get love out of being an asshole. You don't get love out of proving your point. Ram Dass says it a lot. He recognized that he'd rather be free than right. Doesn't matter, man. Doesn't matter. He'd be in a situation where he says, I was really right, but I wanted to be free. I didn't want to be right. I wanted to be free. So, and sometimes that means eating your words and just being that space of love, of offering love and depth and okay, all right, it's fine. And it takes all these different forms, but love is possible. Love is possible. Patience is possible. And these are things we begin to learn and begin to do naturally when we develop a meditative space. So I think I'm going to stop the video here. I have a final point that essentially says dealing with the monkey mind, dealing with doubt, distraction, boredom, and storytelling. But I feel like that could be its own entire video of talking, which I have talked about in the past, but would talk about in the future, of the ego and all its different impediments of boredom and getting distracted from the meditation. And what is this? What's the point of this? Doubt of this doesn't work. I'm just, fuck this, whatever. And the storytelling of where you initially sit down to meditate, and then find yourself way off in the depths of the past and like shit you did years ago and what you're gonna be doing years from now, and oh my god, how am I gonna make this work? And you're not even sitting there anymore. You're off in this realm of fantasy and memory, and you probably all know all too much about that. And I've kind of talked about it, I feel, through this video, of that aspect of the mind, how the mind itself is the obstacle. And rather than going in depth on the monkey mind, take this video and everything I've said as a cue to say, hey, maybe try meditating. Maybe sit down and try this shit out. Sit down and see what it's like to just be here. And you will learn all about the monkey mind. You will learn all about doubt and distraction and boredom and storytelling and fantasies and all of that. I don't need to sit here and tell you about it. Sit down and meditate. Try to focus on the breath. Try to be right here. And you will see all the different aspects of the mind that I could just sit here and talk to you about in your very own being. And you go, wow, like I see how the mind kind of grinds against this thing we call meditation, But yeah, what is meditation? Meditation is beautiful, is what it is. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed the kind of a little bit more formal approach than I usually take, where I had some notes written down this time to try to keep me on the rails of what we're talking about. And it did end up being, how deep are we gonna do it? Like an hour and 10 minutes or something. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope I shed some light on the complexities of meditation and allowed you to see deeper into what meditation offers, and that it's not this weird thing that you're not cut out to do. It's something that it's a space within every single one of us that we begin to recognize. And the way of recognizing it is through this practice of meditation that starts out as I'm gonna sit and meditate, and turns into beginning to hang out with yourself, beginning to hang out with existence, and go and have a conversation with that space again and be here. And it very quickly becomes something you look forward to. It becomes like, if I go a whole day or 2 days without taking like 10 to 20 minutes to sit down and stretch and breathe deeply and evenly, I can feel it. I can feel how I feel, just kind of like, it's like I just drank like 20 cups of coffee or something. Like I'm just tuned up. My mind is just kind of going, and I'm one thing to the next, and I see how I'm not absorbing life and its beauty. And it puts me right, it literally moves me into a space where I sit and I center myself. And it's so refreshing, and it's so relieving, and it feels good to want to meditate. And when you begin to appreciate this space that you get into through meditation, it begins to work with you in such a beautiful way, and you begin to do all the shit I've been talking about in this video. You begin to develop the qualities that come with who we actually are, with what's actually going on, you know? So thank you guys so much for watching, and I really hope you enjoyed this video. I will see you guys in the next video.